Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. This week we'll recap speeches at the 2023 Hobnob Mississippi, showcasing candidates for state office in November's general election. Here this morning from Governor Tate Reeves, his challenger Brandon Presley, State Auditor candidates Larry Bradford and Chad White, and more. With 9 days until Election Day, we have you covered on Mississippi Insight. The Mississippi Economic Council's annual Hobnob Mississippi mixes movers and shakers from the political and business communities. With key general elections just ahead, we got a good opportunity to hear from several candidates last week. 12 News' Tia McKenzie listened in as the gubernatorial candidates let fly with more barbed campaign rhetoric.
Community leaders, lawmakers, and supporters filled the Mississippi Coliseum as candidates for state office took the stage at the annual Hobnob.
All of you played a major role in this story. It is the story of Mississippi.
Expansion of affordable health care, economic development, and education were key topics expounded on by several candidates. One of the most anticipated face-offs has been the race for governor.
Now, we've got serious problems in Mississippi, problems that require a governor to give them attention, not only to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the people of this state, but we're also protecting the future of Mississippi.
Incumbent Governor Tate Reeves focused on the economic successes of his administration before addressing his stance on Medicaid expansion. Healthcare has been one of the burning issues this legislative session.
But let me explain why I'm opposed to Obamacare expansion in Mississippi. It's the same reason I've been opposed to it for the last 12 years. Adding 300,000 able-bodied adults to the welfare rolls is not the right thing to do.
Democratic challenger Brandon Presley believes Medicaid expansion will help struggling rural hospitals in the state.
There is a working majority in the House and Senate of Democrats and Republicans that would pass Medicaid expansion today. They would pass it today, except Tate Reeves stands against it. He stands against the 16,000 jobs that would be created, and he insults working people by saying that they're on welfare.
Presley targeted Governor Reeves, saying the governor allowed the state to lose billions and says if elected, he will target corruption. Governor Reeves says he isn't surprised by Presley's attack. He says Presley is unable to create policies his administration will enact. Minimum wage and employment were also addressed. In downtown Jackson, Tia McKenzie, 12 News.
We're going to hear a lot more from Presley and Reeves Monday evening in a special edition of Mississippi Insight. We'll press the candidates on issues like the economy and the hospital crisis, and we'll challenge them on the swarm of ethics allegations flying from both campaign camps. Our special edition airs from 6 to 7 p.m. Monday, October 30th, and we'll rebroadcast it at 3 p.m. Tuesday, October 31st. We're back in a moment. The race for state auditor was another flashpoint at Hobnob, Mississippi. Republican incumbent Chad White and his Democratic challenger Larry Bradford will play excerpts from each candidate's speeches, beginning with Mr. Bradford.
I am the former mayor of a Delta town called Anguilla, Mississippi, on which you sure have heard about that this state doesn't move without Anguilla. My professional experience extends beyond borders. I'm a former lending officer, chief financial officer, 25 years of fiscal and investment banking and management. Worked with some of the largest lending agencies across this country. I come here today to ask you one question. Considering we're in the largest corruption that our lifetime has seen, they talked about it on CNN. They talked about it on the Washington Post. They talked about it in the Clarion Ledger. They've even spoke about it in Mississippi Today. It is in recent history that the current auditor, Chad White, is either incompetent or he's hiding corruption. I shared with a friend of mine the other day. I said any individual working at a convenience store, when they're leaving and someone is relieving them, they never leave without counting down their draw. to make sure all their receipts add up. My problem with the incompetent is, why would you be appointed and not have an independent audit done to count down your draw to make sure that our receipts balance? Because whatever mistake that was made by the previous individual, you inherit. Every dime that comes through the state of Mississippi has to come through the state auditor's office, whether foreign or domestic, and every dime should have been accounted for. But yet and still, $77 million seems to be lurking and hoovering and causing a black cloud over the Magnolia state of which we live. Taxpayers pay their taxes. We rise up and we go to work every day expecting a return on our investment. That has not happened. SAD has not done its job. And I'm here to suggest to you that from an economic standpoint, this is an economic disaster. When you deal with economic disasters, you have to understand there's been a failure somewhere in the fiscal management. There's been a failure in leadership, a failure in vision, a failure in direction, a failure in our trajectory. But I'm here to tell you today, on October the 26th, that vision, that narrative is about to change. And if Mississippi is going to be open for business, if we're going to broker relationships, if we're going to bring individuals and make sure that Mississippi is open for business, we've got to restore integrity, we've got to restore character, and we've got to let corporations know, both foreign and domestic, that Mississippians are accountable and that we can do business the right way. But you got to have the right leadership in place. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Show me a strong leader in a family, and I'll show you a strong home. Show me a strong leader over any department, whether it's police department or our fire department or any agency, and I'll show you a productive agency. Show me a strong auditor, and I'll show you a taxpayer watchdog that's not a lapdog, that would do business and make sure we're ethical, we're transparent, we're accountable, and we are accessible. Mississippi, our doors are open for business. This is our time of economic development, economic resurrection, and we can and we will. As of November the 7th, we'll make that choice. We'll make that decision. Mississippians, we have an opportunity to change our trajectory based on feasibility studies, based on our surplus of goods, supplies, and services, based on what we have in reserve, pretty close to about $7 billion. I say either they don't know how to do good business or they're just not doing business with us. When you look at interest rates and negotiating your own rate of return, when you look at opening up a sinking fund account and allowing that money to go there and compounding, it's no reason why education should not be fully funded. It's no reason why hospitals are closing. It's no reason at all why we're talking about removing disciplines from our universities and from our people. There's no reason at all. We deserve better. We would do better. And on November the 7th, I don't want you to meet me at the polls. I want you to beat me to the polls. And I want you to vote Brad and not Shad. And let's move Mississippi forward together. It's our season. It's our time. We won't lay down. We won't roll over. We won't play dead. Mississippi will rise and be the resilient people that we've been for years. Vote Brad, not Shad.
On behalf of the State Auditor's Office, I want to thank you for letting us serve you. Over the course of the last 5 years, we have recovered more than $70 million of your money. That's more money than any other 5-year period in the history of the office. We uncovered, told you about it, and put a stop to the largest public fraud scheme in the history of the state of Mississippi with the help of Jody Owens in 2020. And prosecutors working on our cases have yielded hundreds of years of prison time for the defendants that we have investigated over the course of the last 5 years. And yep, we're going to keep putting their mugshots online to deter future corruption in the future. I'm proud of the results that we have achieved in the State Auditor's office, and I want to thank you for letting me serve you. You know, when you turn on your TVs right now, you see that we have achieved the lowest unemployment rate in state history. And that's true, and that's an incredible thing. That's an incredible testament to the work that you have done as employers, that state leadership has done. It's an incredible testament to the working people of Mississippi who show up every single day. But when I see that stat, I also think, what's next? What does the future hold? What can we do to move our economy even further in the right direction? Well, I'll tell you, I get the chance to talk to a lot of y'all all year long. I talk to about 1,000 business leaders every year, and I know that because I keep track of it in a little Excel sheet, which is super exciting. And I'll tell you, the number one thing that I ask when I am talking to business leaders is, what is the biggest challenge that you face? The biggest challenge. Anybody want to guess what the most common answer is? Workforce. Almost every time it's workforce. If you're running a restaurant, if you own a trucking company, if you're the managing partner of a CPA firm, if you're a CEO of a hospital, workforce. People need help. In fact, that marries up with the data pretty well. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce ranks Mississippi as having one of the more severe labor shortages in the entire country. We have more jobs than we have people. And in fact, you can see it also if you look at our labor force participation rate. So that's the percentage of adults that are either working or are looking for work. And our labor force participation rate is lower than every other state in the entire country. We just quite simply have too many adults sitting on the sidelines. We've got to get them off the sidelines. Only about 55% of adults in Mississippi are showing up for work every day or are looking for work. So what do we do? How do we address this? Well, we know if we do address it, everybody's going to do better. Your businesses are going to be able to grow. Everybody's paychecks are going to go up. Everybody's quality of life is going to improve. So we've got to get serious about solving this, because I think this is the most fundamental issue facing our economy over the course of the next 20 years. And we need serious, smart leaders who can think about this and can put solutions on the table. For my money, reading the research on this, I think that we have to start early in kids' lives. Because if you look at the data, if you grow up in a broken home, for instance, if you don't grow up around two parents, you're 20 times more likely to go to prison. You're 9 times less likely to finish high school. You're 5 times more likely to be in poverty. And look, when I pointed that out, another one of the statewide candidates called me a big old racist, which happens about once a week, unfortunately. Never mind that those stats that I just quoted came from a speech that Barack Obama gave a few years ago. We have to have the courage to identify the issues, the challenges that are facing our state, because only if we identify the challenges are we going to be able to identify the solutions at the end of the day. Well, I'll tell you one, we need more mentors in those kids' lives. Take, for example, the JROTC program in Jackson Public Schools. It's a small, highly effective program where you take young people, some of them from broken homes, and you connect them with a retired military service member. And the results that program is achieving are amazing. The kids have almost a 100% high school graduation rate. That's way above their peers. They have a almost 100% school attendance rate, way above their peers. They score on average 2.5 points higher on the ACT. It's changing those kids' lives for the better. And once we put programs into place like that, we got to get those kids in school. We have a 28% absenteeism rate, chronic absenteeism rate. That means almost 1 out of every 3 kids is missing way too much school. And we know, based on the studies of our school system, that the more time a kid spends in front of an adult, keeping them safe, teaching them stuff, the more likely that kid is to succeed later in life. We have to reprioritize how we spend taxpayer dollars to get money into the classroom. If you look at a recent 10-year period, the number of students in Mississippi schools has gone down, the number of teachers has gone down, but the amount of administrative spending that we have shelled out the door has gone up. That's got to stop. We have got to start prioritizing the classroom and teacher salaries. And if we start doing all that, 10, 20 years down the road, we're going to see a huge change in our economy. I'll tell you what else we need to do. You want to know the secret to staying out of poverty? Brookings Institute has researched this, and we know if a kid graduates from high school, gets a full-time job or goes to college, and gets married before having a kid, they are 97% likely to never end up in poverty. I'll say it again. If you finish high school, get a job or go to college, and get married before having a kid, you are 97% likely to never go into poverty. I think we ought to be pounding that message every single day in our middle schools and high schools. I think if you wake a 10th grader up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. in Mississippi, they ought to be able to quote that statistic back to you. This is the secret, good choices. This is the secret to changing the way our state works, to changing the nature of our workforce, to growing your businesses.
Hobnob organizers came close to featuring the full set of state office candidates this year, but there were some noteworthy absences. The Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor, Ryan Grover, was nowhere to be seen. Same with Republican State Treasurer David McGray and Democrat for Insurance Commissioner Bruce Barton. But Republican incumbent Mike Cheney did speak.
You just heard my good friend Andy Gibson talking about agriculture being #1 in the state of Mississippi. The #1 crop in the state of Mississippi is poultry farms. And guess what? If they can't get insurance, they can't have a farm. It's required by the mortgagee. If you can't insure a project, you can't finance it. Banks will not loan you money unless you can insure a product. If you have no insurance, you have no poultry farms, you have no chicken to serve. I don't know what Chick-fil-A would do if we closed up Mississippi. I guess they'll do something else. My administration and my team supports a robust insurance market where business can prosper in the state of Mississippi. Successful economic development depends upon a viable insurance industry. Like this country and across the world, we face inflation today, supply chain disruptions, and rising rebuilding costs, especially when you have tornadoes like we had in Rolling Fork and Monroe County after disasters. The Mississippi insurance industry is stable. I'm glad to report that. But it's under great stress, and that's with admitted companies, companies that we actually regulate, and non-admitted companies, we call them surplus lines companies that we don't regulate the rates on. And they're closing territories, they're consolidating, tightening underwriting guidelines, refusing to write homeowners that have roofs that are over 15 years old. It really presents a lot of opportunity for us to go in and try to straighten the industry out. Your state-wide rent pool, which we passed a bill in 2007 to address the issues of recovery on the Great Gulf Coast, were basically about economic recovery, not insurance. It's an insurer of last resort for wind and hail on the Gulf Coast. Unfortunately, their board, which I don't appoint the board, I've got 4 members out of 11 on that board, asked for a 50% rate increase in commercial business and a 33% rate increase on homeowners on the Gulf Coast. I have denied that rate increase last week. We have to give them some rate increase. We haven't increased rates on the Gulf Coast since 2008. But I cannot, in good conscience, allow the people on the Gulf Coast to suffer a 33% rate increase with what's going on with inflation and companies able to raise their rates on rebuilding costs and increase their premiums. But I want you to know that we are addressing the health care part that we have to address through insurance in the state of Mississippi. Challenges will remain in the healthcare industry. They're going to remain in the property and casualty side. They remain for churches on the Gulf Coast that can't find commercial insurance to cover their churches. They're there. We're working to alleviate those problems. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic about the future of our great state. My team and I are committed to serving you and building a Mississippi with economic opportunities for everyone, with strong health care, resilient communities for generations to come. It's an honor to serve you. I love my job, and I take it very seriously when I get up every morning and go to work.
And Addie Green came to Hobnob with lots of energy. She's a Democratic candidate for state treasurer for the 2nd time in a row. Green is a former councilwoman for the town of Bolton and a past candidate for the Public Service Commission. We hope you'll join us at 6 Monday evening for our special edition, and we'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown from all of us here at 12 News. Make it a great weekend.